Okay. Thank you for joining me at Nick's Crossing. My name is Tanisha, and from my last episode, I shared with you a little bit about, Dominic's dad, Mike, and I said that he was going to be joining us on the next episode. Well, Mike has decided to come on and share his perspective of his life of being a father as a teenager, and then missing in action, while his son was growing up, and then also learning about his son's passing. I'm going to kind of guide him. This is completely unscripted. We kind of just decided to do it today because sometimes you just don't know when to do it. So we're going to just share and let's just talk about it. So, Mike, thank you so much for joining the call.
Good
Um,
evening.
we've already kind of had these discussions, but I want us to talk about it because I think it's important for other people that are dealing with loss as well to kind of know that one, it's not all about the mom, but also that there's a lot of forgiveness when it comes to grief as well. So anyway, Mike, let's talk about. You remember when Dominic, the idea of you becoming a father at 15, was it for you? Do you remember?
16.
16?
hmm
Okay, well, I was 14, so I don't know. Okay, but so what were your thoughts about that back then? What do you remember from that time period?
Um, Typical teenager response: scared, not knowing. Um, it's always life changing. It's always life changing, or for both parties.
Yeah.
You, you're a kid. You're a kid yourself. Um, and due to upbringings and people's personal life be life,
Hmm.
and at that time for teenagers in DC, it wasn't ideal.
Right.
It was more survivalistic, if that makes sense to the viewers. Um, so it seemed a little scary.
Okay, so do you remember? Because I don't. The one thing that because we've talked about a lot of things, but I've never really asked you this question. Um, like, because I left to go from after Dominic was born in March of 1990. We went to go to Guam in July. So we were gone for 4 years from the island. I mean the main island. So how did you feel about, or did you think about Dominic? You
Yeah,
know, yeah,
there's always, um, from, I guess, the guy's perspective of what do I do, how do I do. I'm learning as I go, and I now have to be a teacher as well. Um, there's no script for parents.
no,
There's no ideal way for parents. There's no true right or wrong for parents, especially young parents. Um, you listen to advice from the elders. You also have to form it to be ideal for your situation because their situation may not be your situation.
yeah,
So it's always what if. It's as a parent, as a young parent, trying to navigate life as well as guide life, it can be a hard thing. I mean, there's people out here that don't have a clue, but they're responsible for life.
Yeah, that's true.
So, it's I always wondered, I always knew what I wanted, the example I wanted to give. Um, but I had to learn how to grow on my own.
Okay, so before we reached out, well, before my mom reached out to you, did you try to find us then?
Well, I knew because of the military, I knew you guys were not necessarily deployed, but that would be the term used. So it was kind of like, how do you call around as a teenage kid
Okay,
to kind of question the military? You kind of, what we knew about the military is you kind of went in, you did what you was told.
right. Okay,
That's what we knew. So it was just like, okay, and then you talk to friends that we had, mutual.
right.
Hey, did you have any information? Have you talked to her? That type of thing, and to gather as much as I could, and go from there.
And you know what? I never really thought about that part. Thinking about, yeah, we were military and you were still a teen,
Right?
and not really realizing that that does take a lot of navigating, especially back then. We didn't have the internet and
No,
we didn't have
no.
access to those things. Okay, so that makes a lot of sense. And it's crazy because I'm thinking we've talked about all this stuff, but we really didn't talk about that. I didn't think about that.
Right. We're borderline at that particular junction in life. We're pagers and payphones.
Right. Yep.
You know what I'm saying? There was no, put your name in on Google search. It wasn't no, if you picked up the yellow pages, you got local. You didn't
Yep.
get Guam. You didn't get military personnel. You just, you know what I'm saying? You just didn't get those things
Okay.
at that particular time period.
Okay. So let me ask you this, and then we're going to get into, once you did connect with Dominic. But let me ask you this, as a father, and because I've always been a mom, and I know we have a lot of single parents there, single moms. Is there a longing for the child that you don't know?
Yes. Um, because you there's a part of you out there. So you indirectly, for men, I think it would be different viewpoint, because we're not giving the caretaker guardian role.
Right.
We have to assert our presence to be active. But you always yearn to be like, what kind of father am I? What kind of father can I be? Will this child grow with me? Will this child help me grow? Am I going to say, hey, do this, don't do this? There's always, like I said before, there's always the what if.
Right.
Um, and you try to work on you as much as possible and hope for the best.
Okay. So, um, remembering back to when my mom reached out to you and you were finally able to connect with your son, how was that?
Um, Really great, because it was starting to build the bridge that I thought wasn't there. So I didn't have a problem on the weekends driving down to get him. You know, at that point, I think his sister was here, so it was somebody for him to grow with. From my side as well. Life has started to slow down for me as well. Um, Life wasn't life and as hard as it was in the beginning, so time had been good to me. Um, and it was the joy of seeing them smile, seeing the interaction, seeing what's to come. You, as a young father who's surviving, you kind of. don't know if you here.
Right.
Life is life, and then knowing that you're responsible for somebody make you make better choices, make you make different choices. You're not as carefree or careless as you might have been when it was just you and you had this feeling in your heart that I ain't got nothing to lose. So now you have this living example that you got something to lose. So now when I looked at him, I was just like, okay, I got a whole person, that I'm responsible for, on top of trying to learn, his situation, his quirks, his how he's, the things about him. So it was a good feeling.
So with that, the hard question, as a mom, having to ask someone that I have come to know as an adult, and I care a great deal about you and I love you, but having to ask the question, so what happened? Why, where did you go? What happened with
Um,
the connection?
I thought, if I'm not mistaken, I was under the impression your mom had moved again. She had relocated because originally when I was getting him, she was in Woodbridge,
Okay.
and then somehow or another we lost connection, and she wasn't in Woodbridge no more. And I was like, okay, here we go again.
Okay.
And again, there was no internet to look up your mom. You know what I'm saying? There was no, and I'm like, oh wow. So I'm going through channels, the mutual people. Hey, have you heard anything? Has she called you? And it just, last time you and I spoke was in Woolbridge, and you were in Kentucky, I think, at that point.
The last time I remember speaking to you was when I had just moved to Marietta. That was and I think Dominic was,
Mm. No, I think, see, and I think you were at your mom's, and that was the last time I saw you, because you were telling me about the ex-husband. You were in Kentucky with
right.
the ex-husband. That's what I knew, and I was like, okay. And it just kind of, it wasn't like derogatory, nasty. Oh, I hate her. Like, I
Yeah,
don't want to call her. That was never an option. It just, for whatever reason, the communication just wasn't communicating. It wasn't like I was being nasty. So, oh, nah, she dealing with somebody. Like, we had a falling out because we never had any bad blood
right.
for me to feel that way. And then when your mom relocated again, it was like, all right, wait a second. And you, like I said, you're off payphones and rotary phones, and along those time periods, it wasn't what's accessible now.
Okay.
Even to currently being able to track you down the way that I did. If it hadn't have been for the internet,
And we're gonna talk about that
right?
because time has gone by where there's no communication. The last time I think you saw Dominic, I want to say he may have been 7. I think
Yes,
he was 7.
yeah,
And so there were times when Dominic was because my mom had moved to the Chesapeake area.
right.
So there were times when he actually was working in the DC area. And I remember thinking, like, what if he ran into his dad, Because I tried to find you
Mm-hmm.
on
Mm-hmm.
numerous occasions, but there's like
Mm-hmm.
too many of yous out there.
Correct.
And so I could not find you. And I want to talk about, well, one, I want to say that you were definitely a hole in your son's heart. You were. He
And
was,
and vice versa, because like I said, at the end of the day, when you reach a point as a young parent to feel that you've improved your situation, at that point of us encountering and meeting, I was probably 4 years in the street out of my own mother door. So life was lifing,
yeah,
I surviving. and to get to a point with stability, and you start to work on improving yourself, and now you have this opportunity, you want to make the most of it. And I wasn't able to do what I want to do, and I think that poured out into his brothers and sisters, because I knew as a parent what I wanted. I knew what I wanted, and it got to the point where it just didn't fall the way that I envisioned it.
Right. Okay. So let's talk about moving into how you did find me because of what made you look for me again.
Um, at work, probably for that day and the day before, you just wouldn't leave my spirit. Um, Hopefully, some people can understand. Um, Maybe not, but you just wouldn't leave my spirit alone. Um, Not in terms of you yourself putting out something. Just the presence of you in my mind and in my spirit kept saying, "Find you." Um, was at work and got on the phone. Was at the end of the line, kind of sitting at the Pentagon. Got on the phone and I typed your name in, but I typed your name in under your mother's last name, because that's what I was under the impression of. And I'm like, so I'm typing and I'm typing and I'm due to get ready to run my trip, and his obituary popped up. And I kind of buckled and almost dropped my phone, because I'm like, nah, I know I'm not saying what I think I'm saying. So I'm starting to hyperventilate, and I'm sitting there and I'm like, let me go out of it and go back in it and try this again, because I know I'm not seeing what I'm seeing. It's almost like, please mind be playing a trick on me.
Yeah.
Please don't let this be authentic. And so I did it. And like I said, I tried to look for you and your name again, and it came up again. So I'm starting to read, and I'm like, all right, I gotta go. I gotta run my trip. But I remember getting on the bus. I remember leaving the Pentagon, and I remember being back at the Pentagon. I can't tell you my trip. I can't tell you anything about it. I was there. I got on the bus, ran my route, and all I remember is I was back at the Pentagon. But when I looked at the information, it said Georgia, and it said call your sister, because my older sister is in Georgia. So I called Tanya and I said, Tanya, I need you to do me a favor. I'm seeing something and I'm not sure I'm seeing what I'm seeing. I'm hoping I'm not seeing what I'm seeing, but I need to run this trip. But I need you to reach out through social media, because I wasn't big on social media. I come from a period when you do pictures. When you taking pictures, you snitching. Like, it was different. I'm from a whole different era. It wasn't what it is now. You ain't posting it, and you ain't. So I didn't have social media. So it wasn't no Facebooking and Xing and all that for me. So I did what I thought I could, and I reached out to my sister, who I knew was an active participant on social media, and was like, listen, I need you to find her. If you find her, please tell her I need to talk to her. And that's when Tanya reached out to you. So it was a day I'll never forget,
Thinking about
because
that.
you you don't want, that's not what you want to find out, or how you want to find out. Knowing me, knowing the life that I'm willing to give to protect, and to know it something occurred like that and it was nothing I could do. That's I think that's another hard pill to swallow. You know, what my presence hadn't made. It's always a what if
Yeah.
for me. Um, but yeah, it's a day I'll never forget.
I remember the call, and I remember not being sure about communicating with you and and all of that.
Yeah,
Um,
because I made it abundantly clear. And I told my sister, I said, listen, I'm not mad with her, man. Tell her, call me. Don't listen, call me. Like I was adamant about speaking with you. Like, listen,
you told me.
I need confirmation. I need confirmation that my eyes are telling me the truth, because it's one of those none of what you see, half of what you hear. And I'm looking at it, and I know when I typed in your name under your mother's last name,
Which
I'm
is
like
crazy. Yeah.
something, but I know I'm looking at my son's picture. I know what I'm looking at. And I'm hoping I'm not looking at what I'm looking at. And it's just like a ton of bricks.
So when you knew that it was true,
It was like the hammer on a ton of bricks. Because as a parent, you want nothing but the best. You want nothing but the best, regardless of what the financial situation is, what life is really giving. As a true parent, and I've learned over years, this is who we are. We give them when we don't have. That's what parents do. That's the ultimate sacrifice, is for them to feel the love and to have what we may not have had. You know, so to find out the way that I found out and it be authentic, it was like bricks sitting on my chest and somebody slammed a hammer on top of them.
how do you cope with the loss of your son?
Um, Day by day, because I've lost so many loved ones, and I've mentioned to you before, I find the solace in to know that he's in the presence of the people that mean the most to me. Um, I have a lot to be thankful for, still here, family wise, life wise, but I've lost so many that was just my life before my life. Both parents, two brothers, grandmother, a cousin, like just people that really, 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 really meant a whole lot to me. So I find solace in the fact that they're all together waiting on me.
Is there anything that you want to share regarding, being a parent, a father that has lost a son, supporting his mother, supporting his siblings, you know, because our connection has created a different type of bond
Correct.
with our children and, the extended families coming together. Anything that you would want to say in regards to that?
Um, Guys, ladies, you guys just do a job and a half. Um, just in life itself. Because you don't get the opportunity to tap out. Not saying that it doesn't happen, but most women have to bear life. They don't get the option to say, "Hey, I don't want to be a single parent." They just got to make it happen. So for me, being who I've evolved into and know what I mean and what my kids mean to me and the impact that they played on my life, man, time, make the most of it. It is everything. It is everything. You could say a million I love yous, but it's nothing like that time. Time is irreplaceable. You can't get it back. Once it's gone. Try not to have so much animosity because two adults, two young adults, whatever, can't get along. You know what I'm saying? Find a medium. Let that child be the medium to be civil towards each other.
Right.
Let that child be the platform where somebody takes the high road and initiate the love and the conversation. Stop talking about these parents to each other and the other people like they bad people. If they was bad people, you wouldn't have never interacted with them. So, you know, make the most of make the most of it, man, and love your people, man. They part of your tribe. Love your people. You have to love your people, man. And it's you wouldn't have terms like it takes a village if it wasn't so.
And you know what, Mike? You're part of my village, you know?
And vice versa. And it matters. It matters.
It
You
does.
know, you like I've told you when we've talked previously, if I got and you need, you got. Hands down. I don't believe in I ain't helping her. I ain't the stuff that's going on now, it just makes my spirit churn
Yeah.
because that's not the way it's supposed to be. Nah, man, everybody just because y'all experience something in life don't mean you got to carry hatred and animosity towards each other. That's not, what the design is. That person may have been designed for you for this particular journey.
I do believe that there's truth to that because I think out of all the years I had tried to find you, you came back into my life in my mind at the wrong time. Why didn't you come before?
Correct.
When I say your presence, Cheryl's presence with which is, your kid's stepmom, your Dominic stepmom,
Yeah.
their presence, the siblings has brought so much life into, this family because I see Nick when I see you.
Right.
I hear Nick when you laugh, you know, and that's what I need. And so I'm just grateful to you that we can still have this connection, that there is forgiveness. I have no ill will. Yeah, you weren't here. You weren't. When I needed you the most, you weren't. But you're here now. And I
Right.
believe that Nick sent you this way.
There's a thing, man. Um, there's a quote that people use. We don't know if it's authentic because nobody was with God. But the saying goes, he may not come when you call, but he's always on time.
Hmm.
So again, time, listen, man, as adults, as young people, as parents, time is so precious. Is it really worth being upset with one another over something that probably just needs some air and probably can be communicated on at a later date? You know what I'm saying? Like a slight recess. Um, it sucks because his presence is here, but his physical is not.
Right.
And it had such a ripple effect. Um
Whew.
to you, to me, to his grandmother, to Cheryl, to his brothers and sisters. It was it was one of those things and it left everybody wondering what if. Um, but if it wasn't the question of what if, would we still be here collectively? You see what I'm saying? And that's where for me, that's the woo side. That's the solace because there are no such things as accidents.
Believe that.
And
Yeah.
when you dissect, nobody likes loss, but sometimes loss requires or it requires for loss for growth.
Ooh, I hate that. I ain't gonna even lie to you. I hate that. I hate it.
And it but
But
it's a
I,
fact.
I know. I
It's a
do know
fact.
that as a person of faith, I believe that. I know that. But my physical sometimes doesn't really agree with that.
No, no, and that's the selfish in us
Yeah,
because we've become so attached to the physical.
of course.
You know, we're in love with these Ubers, and we shouldn't be in love with the Uber. We should be in love with the essence. That's what made us feel the way we feel. It wasn't the flesh. It wasn't the Uber. You know, it was the voice, the call, the I love yous that touched the spirit. You know, it wasn't. Yeah, the hugs was great. The hugs are always great, but which one lasted longer? That I love you or the hug?
Well, I'm going to say that I love you. I
I love
appreciate
you as
you.
well.
Thank you so much for being my friend, for being my family. Thank you for being Dominic's dad. And we might do this again, but thank you for joining Nick's Crossing. Please, if you know someone that can benefit from this video, share it, like it. We appreciate you. Thank you so much, Mike.
Thank you.